Part 149. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1486. Planet Watcher Leader adds Update 7. It must be cut off. Don't worry about this stuff, let's survive first. Wait until you are healed, wait until you are healed. Wait until you are fully healed and all these powers have been eliminated, then we can try limb regeneration again. I don't want it, I don't want it. You guys just said that these powers can't be digested until legend. I don't have children now, and I definitely won't be able to have one when legend comes. Up, 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 the extremely penetrating dragon roar, mixed with anxiety and pain, echoed in the room. Greet's first reaction was to quickly cover Sarah's eyes. Cyrilla, turn around. Don't look. Is there anything I can't see? It's not like I don't know, Cyrilla twisted in his hand. What are you doing? Let go. Puff. One of the healers in the front treatment group couldn't help laughing. Without looking back, he smiled and said intermittently. Young man, please don't stop her, the Dragon Clan's inherited memory, even if you haven't seen it with your own eyes, you still know it? Gretel. I hate the inherited memories of the Dragon Clan. Hate. How can a girl know these things? Just like me, just like my classmates, I only got a rough idea of the physiological structure of the opposite sex after I went to college, in departmental and local analysis classes. But the inherited memory of the Dragon Clan, well, when you reach the adult dragon stage, it may be true, and you will know everything you need to know. With just such a distraction, Sarah had already struggled out. Fortunately, after being pulled by Greet, she turned around and turned her back to the injured. She didn't try to turn around anymore. She just wrinkled her little nose and hummed to Greet. Stingy. I hate Bala. What can't I see? Only let me see you. Low laughter echoed one after another in the treatment room. Even Gould's painful screams stopped for a moment, and then he coughed violently several times. Gretel froze in place, feeling a little embarrassed. Ordinarily, there is no need for him to block Cyrilla's view. Girls studying medicine, whether they are doctors or nurses, after several years of internship and work, what have they not seen before? But Cyrilla is different. Cyrilla is my girlfriend. I don't want her to see it, I just don't want her to see it. In the past, when performing operations on male patients, she was disinfected and draped. After everything was completed, she was called in. Why should she look directly at her private parts without any protection because the other party is a dragon? He was shameless and simply took a step forward to block Cyrilla and several healers. With his back pressed against the silver dragon girl's back, he held his head high and looked forward. Actually, if you just want to have a baby, even if that thing blows up, you may not be able to give birth. Huh. Cyrilla made a soft sound of surprise from behind. Greet didn't look back, raised her hand, set up a wind barrier to separate her, and continued. It depends on where it is blown up. If only the outside part is blown up, the part inside that produces life essence is still good and can continue to grow. If the outside part is blown up, just blow it up. There is no rush to repair it for the time being. Are you sure? Gould turned his head with difficulty and rolled his eyes, trying to keep an eye on Gretel. His belly was upside down, his lower abdomen was throbbing with blood, and he looked half dead. The situation was particularly tragic. Only the two will-o'-the-wisps dancing faintly in those steel blue eyes seemed to be a little lively. Greet was a little embarrassed by what he saw, and said bravely. Theoretically, that's the case. I've done experiments, but it also depends on where the explosion hit. If the most critical part is blown away, then you can only rely on regeneration. Little guy, tell me in detail, Elder Batista suddenly interrupted. As he spoke, he raised his hand, and the rays of light fell on Gould, temporarily stopping his pain. It doesn't matter where it gets blown up. What kind of experiment are you doing? I'm not particularly clear about the dragon's body structure. Gretel turned his left foot to his right foot, and his right foot to his left foot, searching his intestines while answering. He really didn't know much about the physiological structure of the dragon clan. The only knowledge he had was either scratching the surface or making circumstantial remarks. The outer part is not hanging outside the body like humans, but is kept inside the body and does not pop out until mating. What does it look like? Gretel has never seen it with his own eyes. He usually activates the transformation technique and is busy experiencing the feeling of energy flow. After struggling for 30 minutes, all his energy has been exhausted and he really has no time to pay attention. Nothing else. Then, he had dissected the physiological structure of the lizard. But, lizard. Lizards and dragons are exactly the same and have ghosts. Finally, he took the life essence of the dragon beast and finally took a look at the structure outside. As for what's inside, that's purely guessing. He quickly glanced back and saw that Cyrilla was still facing him obediently. He immediately hooked his fingers and summoned a patch of light and shadow. Then, pointing to the light and shadow, he said, "The upper part, these two spheres, are the part that produces and stores life essence. The lower part is the organ that injects life essence into the female dragon's body." Having said this, the light and shadow quickly dissipated, and another one appeared. "I have done experiments and observed that the things stored in the two spheres above are many very, very small life forms. As long as they enter the body of the female dragon, theoretically, they can impregnate the female dragon." Oh! Elder Batista raised his eyebrows in surprise. As a senior healer, he already knew some of the things Gretel just said, and in some, he could even see the errors in them, such as the physiological structure of dragons. And some, he only vaguely understood, but did not research in this direction. He pondered and stared at Gretel. What about power? What about the fusion of souls? Without these, only the injection of life essence, is it possible to conceive? This is a difficult point. Greed nodded seriously. During my experiments, I observed that only by supplying sufficient energy can the life essences of the male and female be perfectly combined. Of course, I am using a female of a low-level monster, which already has extremely high demand for energy. If the male dragon and the female dragon are not combined normally, the power that needs to be absorbed will be even more terrifying, and the female dragon may have to bear it. Elder Batista nodded and frowned. The combination and gestation of dragons place very high demands on both parties. It can be said that from the moment of mating, both parents must mobilize great strength. And this power is collected and condensed in the female dragon's body, and injected into the dragon egg bit by bit, growing together with the dragon egg. Relying solely on the female dragon to provide strength would be a considerable burden on the female. I do. With a bang, the light curtain on Gretel's left-hand side shattered and pieces flew into the air. From the other side of the light screen, a female dragon, whose size was only above Gould but not below him, rushed in. She alone had the momentum of a tank group to charge. I do. As long as I can give birth to a child and put in a little more effort, I am willing. With a swipe sound, Cyrilla quickly moved to Greet's left side, unfolded her original form, and blocked the flying colorful light. Kedikaliati. Gould struggled to get up. Elder Batista raised his hand slightly, pushed him back to the ground, and said seriously, "Taika, don't worry. Gretel, can I see your experimental process? I have to evaluate it myself to determine whether this plan is feasible." "No problem." Greet agreed immediately. He summoned the mobile tower spirit, and then summoned the oak staff, connected them together, and prepared to retrieve the original records. Then, he stopped his hand and made a few random gestures. Energy source." The elders and several healers laughed. The elder stepped lightly and saw the light curtain on the ground rippled layer by layer with him as the center, and soon formed a vortex. The vortex kept turning and condensing, and in a few breaths, it turned into a clear pool in front of Gretel. Greet tentatively adjusted the mobile tower spirit and let it explore the interface connected to the energy pool. Soon, the entire tower spirit lit up layer by layer from bottom to top. This light curtain. Is this entire palace of light really made of energy? When is it necessary? Can it be adjusted at any time and energy mobilized at any time? Ah, I really want one, even if I tear down a room and go back. Greet thought silently, working non-stop, first pulling out the draft of the paper, and then presenting the experimental records, magic array configuration, different energy supplies and different chromosome strips, all one by one. Even though this treatment room is extremely spacious, enough for 4 or 5 adult dragons to move around calmly, all the texts, records, pictures, and charts that Greet has retrieved are spread out in the treatment room. Elder Batista and several other healers all stared at the light screen. Look from the beginning to the end, and then look from the end to the beginning. Finally, the elder whispered. You can try. Come on, Gretel, come over and see what you should do to take out the life essence. Greet took a few steps forward obediently, and felt a gust of wind coming, wrapping him up and rising lightly. He raised his head, moved forward, and looked down. The skin on Gould's lower abdomen was torn apart, and it was like a mass of blood and flesh. Greet frowned and looked carefully for a long time, but couldn't discern the anatomical structure from this mass of flesh and blood that kept exploding. He could only answer tentatively. Theoretically, the corresponding fluid can be removed from that organ, confirm the presence of sperm under a microscope, and then inject it into the female dragon. If it cannot be removed from the connected tube, a long needle can also be used to puncture. You want to try? Gretel. No, I am an emergency doctor. When did I become a dragon andrologist? Please subscribe, ask for monthly tickets, ask for recommendation votes, ask for book reviews, and ask for all kinds of things. It's the last 3 days of the month. Have you seen the monthly pass expired sign? Move your hand and quickly vote for the cat. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1487. There is no use struggling. There is no point in resisting. Under the guidance, supervision, and urging of the elders, Greet cautiously approached the wound on Gould's lower abdomen. Relying on his strong knowledge of anatomy, he analyzed it piece by piece and identified it bit by bit. This one is probably the kidney, this one is the bladder, and this one extends up, 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 extending so far, it is probably the intestines. This mass of, cloaca. It was blown to pieces, and it was a bit hard to see clearly. He lowered his head and stared at the wound, muttering something in his mouth. From time to time, he would fly out the mage's hand and flip it, or throw out a piece of mage's trick to mark the identified organs and tissues. Kidney, black, bladder, blue, intestine, then mark it green, right? Greet was a little frightened at first, but gradually became completely selfless. In addition to flipping, comparing, thinking, and remembering, I have even forgotten the thin threads of light buried in the muscles. Relying on the fact that he had set up a shield, he devoted himself wholeheartedly to research. Seeing Gretel working hard, Elder Batista stopped urging him, staring at him, and even carried him to prevent him from running away. Instead, he set up a shield and carefully protected the child to prevent him from being injured by the sudden escape of energy. As for how many times Gould was flipped? The wound has been open for more than half an hour? What does it matter? Dragons have rough skin and thick flesh. If you lie down just a little longer, you won't die. Besides, he was still here. With him hanging on to his life and calming the pain, what else could Gould have to complain about? Besides, he saw that Greed was very careful when he did it. Although he used the hands of a mage, he tried to loosen and separate each time he flipped it, using gentle movements and never pulling or pulling. This child has a gentle heart, a heart that belongs to a healer, and will never harm the treatment target without reason. Gretel carefully looked at it for a long time, identified it for a long time, and sensed it for a long time, but he was still a little unsure. Elder Batista kept staring at his expression. He coughed and came up with an idea. Why can't you do it? You also have something, but you don't understand it yourself? Otherwise, why don't you transform into a dragon and try to sense it? Well. Gretel quickly looked back at Cyrilla. It's okay to do this kind of thing normally, but now in front of Sarah, it's so shameful. It's okay, just stop them. The elder waved his hand, and the colored light on the wall of the treatment room suddenly began to flow, and a light curtain was pulled out horizontally and blocked between them. Greed stared at the light curtain for a while and sighed. Alas, I really can't escape. He bravely flew out, activated his transformation technique, and turned into an adult silver dragon. He didn't lower his head and look at himself sharply, but narrowed his eyes slightly and carefully felt the flow of energy in his body. From the heart to the abdomen, flowing all the way down. Before he could understand it, a wave of weakness hit him, and Gretel was shaken. The figure shrunk, retracted into human form, and stood on the ground to a small point. Oh, it's still too young. Elder Batista sighed regretfully. The claws moved slightly, and a helmet-sized silver cup filled with liquid floated in front of Gretel. Here, drink it. What is this? What are the ingredients, what effects do they have, and what are the side effects? Will such a big cup stretch me to death? Greed glanced at the elder warily, and used an identification technique, but it was fruitless. He used another identify poison, but it was not poisonous. Then he picked up the cup and carefully brought it to his mouth. The cold, tasteless liquid, like a pool of moonlight, touched his lips and immediately slid down his throat impatiently. In an instant, Greed was refreshed and felt as if he had been cleansed from head to toe. After drinking this glass of liquid, Gretel suddenly felt that his mental energy was much more active and more refined. I can actually tell the subtle differences in the dragon's energetic flesh and blood. This one is mostly water, this one is solid, but it is somewhat different from the dragon's. This expansion should be very high, this. Well, this organ is probably where the dragon life essence is produced and stored. After studying it carefully, Greed pointed to a pair of slightly beating oval organs in Gould's abdomen. Alas, these two things are not obvious when viewed from a high place, but when viewed from below, they are taller than him. Standing between the two oval organs and looking around, the visual effect is just like watching Neza Makes the Sea when I was a child. The clam girl standing in the clamshell dances, it feels really weird. But there's nothing you can do about it. As your body grows, various organs must be enlarged accordingly. Not to mention dragons, let's just talk about this bull thing, which can be half a meter in diameter. Hanging dangling from the back, the visual effect. Well, you are right. Elder Batista also changed back to his human form, followed him and floated down, nodding slightly. With a slight smile on his lips, he looked at Gretel. How do you judge? Observe, sort out according to the anatomical structure, and then use your mental power to perceive. Gretel answered honestly. This oval-shaped organ has extremely dense blood vessels on its surface. For those who don't know, they thought it was tumor tissue. Only tumor tissue can devour energy so greedily and require so much blood supply. Unlike the tumor tissue, this oval organ was surrounded by extremely powerful energy. If you don't look at it with your naked eyes but with your mental power, you will mistakenly think that it is a ball of flame or a roaring furnace. Moreover, these energies are distinct. The inner layer is firm and condensed, and in the perception of spiritual power, it shows a hard steel blue color, which is extremely similar to Gould's own energy properties. The outer layer of energy is warm, soft, and densely wrapped, but it is a watertight defense. Gretel stood in front of it and felt it carefully. He could feel that the light needles, as thin as cow hair, were constantly stinging, trying to penetrate deep into the inside, but were softly blocked by the outer energy. Wrapping, absorbing, fixing, flowing, and consuming without harming the surrounding organs and tissues. Strangely, such a powerful force can be easily penetrated by my own mental exploration. So strong. The elder is really strong. You identified them well, they are them. Elder Batista nodded with satisfaction and smiled. Then what? How to take out what you said? Well, the essence of life. Well, on a practical level, Greet really doesn't know. If you follow the natural process, there are a lot of complex physiological and psychological processes, from hormone secretion to nerve conduction, and you can write at least one chapter on each step. As for the manual procedure, Gretel actually has no good ideas except puncture. And piercing, it has to be pierced in the right place. Pierce it into the tube below. What if it doesn't contain enough content and won't be sent out? Punctured into the body, this can easily cause irreversible damage. Try boldly, don't worry, I'm here. Elder Batista encouraged him with a smile. Believe in the power of healing. Gretel took a deep breath. I rummaged left and right in the collection and found a lumbar puncture needle that I had made for a long time but had never had a chance to use. It was also equipped with a sharpness spell and an anti-corrosion spell. Aiming at the end of the oval organ and the tube connecting the external organs, he stabbed in with all his strength. 3, 2, 1, poof. There was an empty feeling in front of him, and Gretel guessed that he had arrived at the right place. He immediately withdrew the syringe and held it for a long time. When he pulled it out, he saw that it was empty, with nothing in it. Well, do we need to change the method? For example, direct puncture. Elder Batista was not in a hurry and asked leisurely. Greet rubbed his head and thought for a while. Wait a minute, I'll try another method. Got it? The pink book. The pink light brushed gently and gently over and over again. The magic in this booklet has different types and functions, ranging from the control system to the transformation system to the protection system. Greet had no clue, so he had to try the same thing. When he tried the 8th item, he suddenly raised his eyebrows. Yes. That's right, it's done. Elder Batista smiled so much that the wrinkles on his face smoothed out. Standing among a mass of flesh, blood, and organs, he looked like a tiger taking a nap after being full. Young people, you should try more. What next? The next step is of course to observe first. Gretel muttered microscope, microscope, microscope silently, set up the magnification spell, and observed carefully. Well, the cell activity is very high, maybe too high, the proportion of forward movement reaches more than 60%, what is going on? How to say? It works. Gretel stood up confidently. Next, just inject these life essences into the female body. This, sister, can you do it yourself? Ketikaliade stared blankly at Greet, holding the thing in his hand that was no bigger than the tip of her own claw. That's it? That's it? That's it? Can this thing make me pregnant? Well, if you can't do it yourself, you may need to use a tube to inject the liquid in the corresponding place. Gretel became more and more stumbling as he spoke. From what he just observed, Gould's anatomy seems to be that dragons have a cloaca. This means that you can't just inject into the cloaca, and you have to go in further. Okay, little guy, leave it to me. Elder Batista shook his head as he listened, and finally snatched the syringe from Greet's hand and drove him out. He raised his hand, and a curtain of light stood between him and Gretel. Alas, children are children. At the critical moment, we have to rely on old immortals like us. Dragon roar formation, I don't know what magic he used. In short, when the light curtain dispersed, Ketikaliote was lying on the ground and carefully wrapped her tail around herself. I think I might be pregnant. It's the end of the month. It's the end of the month. It's the last day. Everyone, please hand over your monthly tickets. There are now 3,156 votes, reaching 4,000 votes, and there will be 6 more votes next month. Thanks to Atwazy, at Terminus. Est for tipping 100 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1488. Planet Watcher Leader adds Update 8. Have you heard? Steel Dragon Gould was injured on the battlefield, and that thing was blown to pieces. Which thing? That thing. It's the thing that all male dragons have. Oh, what will happen to Ketikarudi? They have been married for less than 30 years and have no children yet. In the rest area on the edge of the battlefield, several young male dragons gathered together and whispered. Gold, silver, and copper-colored heads were gathered together, one raised, a few lowered, another raised, and a few lowered. From a distance, it seemed as if there was an invisible giant hand holding them down to play whack-a-mole. Like a child. It is said that Ketikaliote is determined to give Gould a child. Then how can you give birth? Those things are gone. Even if you give birth, it won't be Gould's seed, right? Hey, you are not well informed. It is said that there is a new human magician, the little princess of the Liuguang Shining family. What? The man he brought back used a special method to make Ketikaliote pregnant with Gould's child. What? What method? Are you sure it's Gould's child? I don't know. Elder Batista was also present. He said yes, so that's probably. This news spread around Sky Dragon City like wildfire in an instant. It was passed from the treatment center to the garrison area of adult dragons, and then to the garrison area of mature dragons. The more it spreads, the more it becomes distorted, and the more it spreads, the more outrageous it becomes. Have you heard? Steel Dragon Gould's thing was blown up, and a human magician helped him get his wife pregnant. Have you heard? The wife of Steel Dragon Gould received the help of a human magician and became pregnant. A ray of silver light passed far away from the horizon. Cynthia listened to the chat not far away and quietly slowed down the flapping of her wings. For a moment, a hazy mist surged around her, shrouding her inside. The fog became thicker at first, and then became lighter and lighter. When the fog disappeared, the whole thing disappeared in place. She was extremely skilled in the art of disappearing in place. From passing by to disappearing, she did not disturb any nearby creatures. Those young male dragons were still ignorant and bragging enthusiastically. Have you heard? There is a human magician, the boy brought back by the little princess Yuhui, who made the wife of Steel Dragon Gould pregnant. Cynthia frowned slightly. As a legendary silver dragon, she has dealt with quite a few humans and believes in her own eyesight. Gretel is not this kind of person, but, why did such rumors suddenly come out? She closed her wings, flapped them slightly, and turned into a stream of light and flew towards the inner layer. Along the way, I listened to a few words here and a few words there. I finally heard everything. Tisk, Gretel didn't do anything wrong in this matter, but if such rumors were ignored, Cyrilla would be too aggrieved. She accelerated her flight and soon returned to the medical clinic. Plunging into the corridor, within a moment, he saw the eldest son wandering outside a treatment room. Cynthia appeared and slapped him hard with her left wing. Waska. Ouch, Mom, why are you here? Why am I here? If I don't come, what will happen to Gretel? Do you know what is being said outside now? How do I know? I haven't been out for several days. What's going on outside? Saying that Gretel got pregnant by another female dragon. Look, how can they let them spread such rumors? What? Gretel, you got another female dragon pregnant. The light curtain instantly shattered. Vaska rushed in, and as soon as he yelled, his mother grabbed him by the neck and carried him back. Before she could get out of her mother's claws, there was a sound of wind inside, and Sarala flew out, swung her wings and flapped over. You're talking nonsense. You're talking nonsense. Gretel has been with me these days. I was wrong, I was wrong, I was wrong. Vaska originally wanted to make a joke with Gretel, asking him to hurry up, defend and reassure him, and then tell him about the rumors outside. Unexpectedly, Gretel stood far away inside, looking like she had not yet reacted, but her sister would react so strongly. He was being held down by his mother and couldn't escape, so he had to curl up into a ball, raise his wings and hug his head. I'm joking, I'm really joking, hey. Stop hitting. It's just a joke. Sarara angrily slapped her several more times before jumping to the side and watching her mother ravage her brother. After receiving several more blows, Vaska rolled out from under her mother's paws, grunting. Mother, that's really a rumor, it's true. I've been with them these past few days and saw them all. Cynthia's expression slowly softened. He raised his right wing and gently patted his daughter. Okay, Mom knows. Well, it's not Gretel's fault that the rumors were spread. Don't argue with him. Mom will talk to Elder Batista. She waited patiently for a while, and the innermost layer of light curtain quietly disappeared, and Elder Batista appeared in front of everyone in a flash. Looking around, he smiled and waved to the family. Cynthia, you came just in time. I have something to talk to you about. The little guy has come up with something amazing. It is difficult for dragons to breed, and the higher the level, the more difficult it is to breed. Younger dragons with lower levels, such as dragons who have just reached adulthood or even started giving birth in their youth, are easier to conceive and give birth to. However, it is not easy to hatch the dragon eggs they give birth to, and it is also difficult to awaken their true names. As for the prime-age dragons and legendary dragons, their problem is that they cannot conceive. Older dragons are sometimes simply powerless. At the very least, this thing that Gretel created can help some helpless dragons, especially male dragons, to increase the possibility of obtaining offspring. Of course, whether these male dragons are willing to accept help is another question, ahem. But no matter what, the results of Gretel's treatment have already made a circle among the legendary dragons. These days, dragons have been asking questions one after another. Can the success rate of dragon conception be increased? Can the success rate of dragon egg hatching be increased? Can it be made easier for baby dragons to awaken to their true names? Can make the aging dragon more likely to get pregnant? So, you are interested in Gretel's achievements and want to give him more help to let him carry forward this method. Cynthia listened to the elder's explanation and immediately grasped the key points. Or, discuss with him and exchange it from him for this method to help the dragon clan conceive offspring. So, what do you want me to do? The little guy is your relative after all. Elder Batista smiled extremely kindly. While smiling, he looked over Cynthia's shoulder and glanced at Greet from a distance. We would like to ask you to talk to him and let him turn his energy in this direction. At present, he has been insisting that he is not capable enough to do this project. Gretel doesn't have the character to reject people on purpose. Cynthia frowned slightly. He refused, probably because he really can't do it himself. Otherwise, we buy a complete set of technology from him and then do it ourselves. The little guy refuses. No matter what, I refuse. Gretel's reply was, if you want it, just take it. He can't make it if you exchange this result for something. This result is too immature, and many problems have not been solved. He cannot exchange it for anything. So what does he want? He said that he is not familiar with the anatomy of dragons at this point. Elder Batista couldn't help but frowned. I would like to ask if there is a chance to dissect a giant dragon corpse. Or even a dragon beast. The body of a dragon beast should be the same as that of a giant dragon. Tisk. Cynthia also frowned. Greet's request was not too outrageous from his own point of view. Cynthia had also heard of his research method, but where did the dragon's body come from? Dragon tomb? When an old dragon feels that its life is coming to an end, it often enters the dragon tomb, where it quietly waits for death. The energy field there is quite special, and there may be dragon corpses remaining. The problem is, the giant dragon that dies in the dragon tomb will never be disturbed by his own kin. If outsiders disturb him, the entire dragon clan will fight to the death with him. It's impossible to drag the dragon corpse out from inside. Of course, considering Greet's research results and their significance to the dragon clan, it's not like we can't open a back door for him and let him go in and do the dissection on his own. However, over time, the powerful energy in Dragon Tomb gave birth to various strange magical phenomena and magical creatures. With such a small body, the little guy wants to be dissected alive and come out alive. Not very likely. As for the corpses of the dragons who died outside, unless they drifted away during the battle and could not be recovered, they would be sent to the dragon tombs by relatives and fellow clansmen. Want to seize one for Greet to dissect? Non-existent. Are there any dragon beasts that are about to die recently? She asked thoughtfully. Elder Batista smiled bitterly. I have arranged for my tribe to inquire, but there is no news yet. However, even if it is a dragon beast, it is also a dragon egg that was born in the same nest as the giant dragon and hatched from the same nest. Let's forget about natural death. We specially grabbed one to dissect him, but no one could do it. Now what? Wait for the opportunity. If any woman happens to be injured and needs treatment, you can let Gretel observe, or, which dragon beast? They looked at each other. Just as he was thinking whether to let nature take its course and wait for it, or try to get a dragon beast to come in, a strong wind suddenly rose in the corridor, and a giant dragon flew in. Elder, go and have a look. Ketakarudi said that the dragon egg she was pregnant with may not survive. It's the end of the month. It's the end of the month. Everyone, go through your ballot folders and vote for the cat with the few votes left. With another 650 votes, there will be an additional 6 months of votes next month. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1489. Saving people is like putting out fire. Elder Batista was the first to stop talking and left the treatment room in a flash. It was difficult for his huge body to move in the corridor as flexibly as a breeze or a stream of water. The surroundings were not disturbed at all. Even the curtains and walls made of colorful lights did not cause any tremors of light and shadow. Cynthia followed second. As a legendary dragon, she has the unshirkable responsibility to take care of the younger ones. What's more, when it comes to breeding dragon eggs, the female dragon always has a common language with the female dragon. She retracted her wings and transformed into a stream of silvery white light, biting tightly behind the elder. About to leave the treatment room, he suddenly paused and turned his head. Waska, take them with you. Okay. Vaska responded weakly. He flapped his wings and squatted down slightly. Hey, get on my back. Elder brother. Come. It's not easy to wander around here, I'll take you with me. There are some places where you don't have to carry them yourself. Thank you, bro. Sirara returned to her human form, pulled Gretel, and flew upwards. Greet followed her and whispered thank you, brother in a low voice, and received an angry glare. Who is brother you? Well. Or call me brother-in-law, Future brother-in-law. The other side continued to glare and glare. Gretel silently shut up and flew on Vaska's back, giving himself and Cyril a dense defense. The silver dragon fluttered its wings, and the stream of light behind it continued to retreat. Greet stood on his back and looked out, only to see more than a dozen light curtains of various colors rippling on both sides of the long corridor. Some are bright white, some are dark, some are hot when you look at them, and some have constant explosions inside. The surfaces of some light curtains are large and small, with dozens of vortexes constantly rotating, and the surfaces of some light curtains bulge from time to time, as if something is trying to struggle out. Is this a place for injured dragons to rest? Or a place where other things are imprisoned? Gretel only looked at it from a distance in the protective shield held up by Vaska, and felt a creepy feeling. Being a doctor here requires you to withstand so many risks and heal so much alien energy. It feels like even an existence that has just stepped into the legend cannot walk sideways here, and the medical clinic is already the safest place in Sky Dragon City, and the outer battlefield is much scarier. Greet sighed silently, and became more determined to study hard and advance. Alas, let's start solving the problem at hand. I don't know what happened to the female dragon. Vaska took him flying forward, passing through 20 or 30 rooms, and finally turned inside. As soon as he entered the door, Gretel was a little out of breath. He quickly added another layer of elemental endurance before looking at the room intently. Ketikaliadi, the blue-gray female dragon, had its tail curled up at this moment, lying in a whirlpool of colorful lights. At first glance, the colored light looked like the color of her scales, and Gould's scales were mixed together and evenly mixed according to the proportion, and it also seemed like a layer of camouflage was covered on her body. It turns out that the magic circle can gather energy like this, right? Greet opened his eyes wide, observed and sensed carefully, and felt that it was an eye-opener. The tangible and insubstantial light liquid gently patted on Ketikaliadi's scales. With each ripple, the color on the scales changed slightly. It felt like she was not immersed in light, but like she was immersed in a pool of cold molten steel. At the edge of the whirlpool, headed by Elder Batista, several giant dragons gathered together. Dragon roars came and went, and they were constantly discussing and adjusting the whirlpool. The proportion of earth elements is larger. It can't be any bigger. No matter how big it is, it won't be absorbed and it will hurt the body instead. Where's the healing power? We can't add more healing power, adding more will cause problems. The child is still young after all, so we can't overdo it. But it's dying. It's dying. Ketikaliadi cried out in a tearful voice. She could feel the dragon egg she was carrying. It was fine when I was pregnant a few days ago, but over the past 2 days my breath has become weaker and weaker, and is about to disappear. She desperately gathered strength and tried her best to keep the child. However, even with the help of the magic circle, even with the constant infusion of elemental power with similar attributes, it was still only stable for a while. Don't worry, Taika, don't worry. Cynthia leaned down and gently rubbed her neck against the young junior. It is not necessarily a bad thing that dragon eggs cannot be laid. Only the strongest eggs can be laid. Those that are too weak, even if they are saved and barely given birth to now, will not be easy to hatch. Even if they are hatched, they will not be able to awaken. Real name. The reproduction of dragons is so cruel. Not strong enough, not even qualified to be born. The energy gathered by the parents is not enough to provide for the child's initial growth. There are several eggs in a litter, and one or a few of them do not capture enough energy. Or during the process of growing in the egg, there are any shortcomings or damage. Such children will be eliminated at the dragon egg stage. Since we are destined to be eliminated, it is better to kill them as early as possible, which will consume less energy and cause less damage to the mother body. Gretel nodded slightly as he listened. Just like the combination of sperm and egg, the sperm that is not strong enough cannot reach the place where it should go, cannot reach the egg, and will be eliminated. If it encounters an egg, it cannot break through the egg's outer layer of defense and is eliminated. A fertilized egg barely becomes a fertilized egg. A fertilized egg that is not strong enough will fail to implant successfully and will be eliminated. I barely succeeded in implanting, but I had a miscarriage due to various reasons in the early stages of pregnancy, and I was eliminated. At each stage, without assisted reproduction and without all kinds of medical care, only the healthiest children can be saved until the end. Those who are unhealthy will die early and cause less damage to the mother's body. If problems occur in the second or third trimester of pregnancy, even if the mother has a small confinement period, she may not be able to recover. However, this is true for groups, but not necessarily so for individuals. There are always some couples who, for one reason or another, want children no matter what. But Gould and I only have this child. Ketikaliadi shook her head hard and shook Cynthia away. Just like this, the light and shadow of the magic circle underneath her body turbulent, and she immediately felt that the aura of the dragon egg was a little weaker, and she was so frightened that she quickly lay down. I can't live without this child, if I can't keep this child, Gould. Well, if we can't keep this child, we can actually have another one. Gretel silently cursed on Vaska's back. Moreover, this artificial insemination by Long Gong came in a hurry, and the mother was not prepared. If it happens again, when the mother's body is at its best, she must gather enough energy to catch up with the ovulation period. Do dragons have a specific ovulation period? I really don't know. I have to ask when I get back, and I can't ask Cyrilla. Gretel, what do you suggest? Cynthia's head suddenly turned around and came close to Greet. The silver vertical pupils blinked slightly, and Gretel's figure was reflected in them, which was almost as tall as himself. Gretel subconsciously took a step back and took a deep breath. How about trying to add a little life energy? The results of my previous experiments are that adding a certain amount of life energy is good for the division of fertilized eggs. He quickly tossed out a batch of research results. The light curtain was like a forest, spinning around and forming a curtain around him. Cynthia nodded slightly, looked down at the research results for a while, raised her slender neck, and groaned. For a moment, dragon roars came and went, and the magic circle under Ketikaludi rotated again, dyed with a light green. Like willow buds, like spring grass, they penetrate into the female dragon's body thinly and densely. Soon, Ketikaridi's breath became soothing, she spread her wings and lay quietly on the ground. Cynthia looked at her carefully for a while, quietly exited, and discussed with several dragons in low voices. Life energy does work. But it consumes too much. To supply the dragon egg with life energy, at least 2 legendary dragon territories are needed. We are not those with pointed ears. In their big forest, there are dense trees, rich life energy, and a large number of ancient trees to help mediate the energy, but we can't. And it's winter now. It's winter. The grass is withered, the shrubs are buried under the snow, and the leaves of the trees have all fallen. It is too harmful to nature to mobilize life energy at this time. What about going to the south? Send her to the south. Now. Move her over immediately. Where can I find a dragon nest that meets her needs? If you ask me, it shouldn't be offered like this. If this child is so weak and can't even lay a dragon egg, he shouldn't have been born in the first place. But Gould, are there not many compatriots who died in war before they gave birth to children? Hasn't it happened before that our compatriots died in war before they were married? Other compatriots can do it, so why can't he? There was no way before, but now there is a way. You must try it. Gretel, what do you think? Suddenly, 5 or 6 giant dragons turned their heads and came over at the same time. Greet had already flown off Vaska's back, and now he was standing in the open space in the treatment room. It felt like he was standing in the middle of the square, watching several buildings fall towards him. Well, I think. What do you think? I don't think you have to worry about this child. Greet answered bravely. If you can take the life essence once, you can take it again. It's better to be prepared to get pregnant again than to rush into battle, even if you find a suitable dragon's nest that is full of energy. That makes sense. Well, little guy, are you willing to take charge of this project? Take care of her yourself until she gives birth to the baby safely. What? Do I want to switch to a reproductive auxiliary specialist? What's next? What else do you want me to do? Postpartum care of the female dragon? It's the end of the month, please vote meow meow meow. In the last 12 hours, there are still 320 votes left to reach 4,000. There are still 320 votes left. There are only 320 votes left, and there will be 6 more votes next month. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1490. Planet Watcher Leader Adds Update 9. I won't get involved with this project. I don't understand anything. I can't help you. Greet refused in every possible way and was reluctant in every possible way. Are you kidding me? He doesn't understand the anatomy of dragons. He doesn't understand the physical and endocrine changes that occur when dragons give birth to offspring. He also doesn't understand the energy and nutrients that dragons need to give birth to offspring. He can't even understand the magic circle that provides energy for the female dragon and dragon eggs, as well as the energy type that matches the dragon type and the magic circle. If he doesn't understand so many questions, asking him to follow up on the female dragon's birth process and postpartum care is not giving him a chance to learn, it's taking the dragon's life seriously. You're not going. Cynthia frowned and her voice deepened. What a great opportunity this is, what a great opportunity to understand the physiology and reproductive process of dragons. After this experience, when Sirara will give birth to a child, he will take care of her throughout the whole process. Doesn't he feel confident? What a rare opportunity to use other dragons to gain experience and use it to take care of my wife. No other dragon can ask for it. If you feel something is wrong with your wife, or if you feel something is wrong with the dragon egg you gave birth to, you should either seek help from an elder, or you can only seek help from a healer. I won't go now, although Greet couldn't look at the dragon's face, but from the sudden increase in pressure in front of him, he also knew what his mother-in-law, or future mother-in-law was thinking. He took a step back and shook his hands wildly. I haven't even understood the basics. If I go now, I will just watch the fun and won't be of any help at all. Can you give me some time? Wait until I have laid the basics before I can participate in this project. Besides, he quickly took a few steps towards Cynthia, looking left and right. Well, there are some things that are not easy to say in front of other dragons. Just as he reached the third step, a breeze picked up and swept him onto Cynthia's back. The surrounding dragons let out a rumble of laughter. Let's break up and let them talk privately. They twisted their bodies and swung in the direction of the magic circle, leaving only Cynthia and Greet standing there. There was a flash of silver light in front of him, and Gretel fell down lightly. After regaining his composure, Cynthia had transformed into an elf form and stood in front of him. What else? Besides, it will be many years before Sarah and I are officially married and have children. Greet continued quickly, facing the suddenly dangerous look in his future mother-in-law's eyes. You see, I still have a long way to go before becoming a legend. I won't have the nerve to marry Sarah until I reach legend, right? Otherwise, what would I become? Before he could get rid of the fate of being a short-lived species, he was going to make her sad for hundreds or thousands of years. Cynthia's eyes softened slightly, she frowned slightly, and shook her head slightly. You don't have to be so stuck on getting married. You are a very talented child. It is only a matter of time before you become a legend. Once you become a legend, it will not be easy to have children. Before that, it is best to have one or two. Individual. Greet breathed a sigh of relief. If the future mother-in-law can say such words, it means that she has agreed to his marriage to Sarala. But the more this happens, the more cautious he has to be when it comes to marriage and having children, and the more he has to consider Sarala's future. Well, since it's a matter of time, why not wait a little longer? Besides, giving birth to a child will consume too much for Sarala, so it's best to wait until she advances. Cynthia was silent. Gretel observed the words and expressions, and quickly hit the snake and stuck it on the stick. Well, I have another question. Is there any union between humans, elves, or men of other races, and dragon women in the past? How did they give birth to children? Are there any records of this in the dragon tribe? Please, it must be there, it must be there. He doesn't know anything now. He doesn't even know whether Sarara will give birth to a child from an egg or from a viviparum after she marries him. If a male dragon combines with a female of another race, there is a high probability that it will be a viviparous birth, otherwise the mother's body will not be able to bear it, but the fertility of a female dragon is too flexible. Have you thought of this now? Cynthia first rolled her eyes at Gretel, then quickly raised her gaze and glanced at Sarala in the distance. Seeing that her daughter was standing far away, it looked like she couldn't hear what they were saying, so she turned her attention back to her future son-in-law. You are planning too far ahead. No, you will dislike me if I plan too far, and you will dislike me if I plan too far. What do you want from me? Gretel couldn't help but cursed. However, struggling with this issue with the mother-in-law is obviously asking for trouble. He sorted out his thoughts and said slowly. Legends giving birth to offspring are different from ordinary people. Dragons giving birth to offspring are different from humans. Dragons giving birth to offspring are different from humans. Dragons giving birth to offspring are also different from dragons giving birth to offspring. It is difficult to apply the experience accumulated with Kedikaliati to Sarala. Rather than spending time on this project, it's better to get down to business and lay a solid foundation. So, is there any relevant information? Of course there is. Cynthia answered without hesitation. Ever since they learned that their daughter was traveling with a human boy, the couple had been rummaging through the dragon clan secrets for a long time, and also sought help from many relatives and friends. In the history of the dragon clan, there are not many situations similar to Sarala's, but they are not particularly rare. The records left for this are scattered, but if you try hard to find them, you can still find them. Just what they have heard of is oviparous, viviparous, laying an egg and hatching a child from the egg. Parents have different levels and situations. The pressure on the mother is different, and the upper limit of the child is also different. Putting it all together, it is enough to write a book or a thick biography. Moreover, she and Andrei, as legendary dragons, have their own status in the clan. Some things are difficult for others to find, but they can still find them if they want to. However, whether others are willing to give it to you, and to what extent, it still depends on your own ability. There are some core records and secret knowledge that you must be willing to give out to others. Task. Gretel suddenly felt a heavy weight on his shoulders. He took a deep breath and nodded heavily. I understand no knowledge comes without a price. This is a magician's saying, and it's something I've known since I started learning magic. Don't worry, I will definitely give you enough value in exchange for what I want. Oh, what do you think you can come up with? Gretel already had an idea about this. When my mother-in-law asked about it, she was confident and talked about it. About the analysis of dragon chromosomes and the conditions for successful replication of dragon chromosomes. It should be that the results of these two projects are enough to exchange for the entire dragon family, right? What he has to worry about is whether the dragon clan has a mature exchange mechanism. Just like Nevis, if you want to get something, go directly to the Magic Council. You can get most of the things in the exchange hall. If they are really high-end, go to the teacher. On Yangju Island, the elves also have a treasure trove. If you need anything, just go and get it, or exchange it. However, if the dragon clan has one family living in 1,000 square kilometers and one family living in 10,000 square kilometers, do they have a public treasury? Or should we visit each family one by one, one by one? Cynthia narrowed her eyes slightly, her gentle almond eyes suddenly turned into vertical pupils, and then back again. She thought for a moment and asked seriously. How long will it take for you to produce results from these studies? I mean, visible results, papers alone are not enough. There must be solid, visible, and helpful results before I can get them. Go get something for you. There is one right now, Greet replied. Vasker asked me to do a project, it's already a bit sketchy. If you give me some time, the results should come out. Although it's only related to half-dragons, even half-dragons can be helpful to the dragon clan, right? It does help. No dragon clan would be satisfied with the number of subordinates they have or the strength of their subordinates. Moreover, the dragon clan naturally has a suppressive power over half-dragons promoted with dragon blood, and is not afraid of their rebellion. Cynthia also heard about her son's troubles. Hearing this, he nodded calmly. In this case, let's resolve Taika's matter as soon as possible and go back to continue research. The sooner the results are produced, the faster and more resources can be obtained. Gretel was carried in front of a group of giant dragons. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, he summoned Silent Phantom and spoke. At the beginning of the conception of a dragon's life, sperm and eggs are also combined. Generally speaking, a female dragon's body will be pregnant with many eggs, and only one to a few will mature at each time and can be combined with sperm. It's not a big deal if the union fails once. As long as the time is right, you can take out the sperm multiple times and try to inject it multiple times. While he was talking, the surrounding dragons were talking, and the dragons roared continuously. Cynthia lay next to Ketikaludi, gently rubbed her neck against the young female dragon's neck, and whispered to comfort. It's true. You see, the dragon eggs we breed are actually getting bigger and getting ready slowly. It's not a big deal if something goes wrong once, you can try again, many times. Don't be afraid. My child is dying. Ketikarudi groaned in pain. The magic circle under her body suddenly trembled violently, rolling up a whirlpool and injecting it into her body. There was a flurry of excitement, and before Greet could react, he was kicked out along with Cyrilla and Vaska. Let's go. Don't stay here. Get out. Greet squatted in the deep and long corridor, and looked at each other with Sarara. The colorful light curtain inside brightened and darkened, and brightened again. Gretel even slept for a while before Cynthia walked out tiredly. Her child was not saved. It will take some time for her to adjust and try again. Little Greet, both she and Gould said they are very grateful to you. Do you have a thank you gift? There is no thank you gift. In other words, there is none for the time being. However, Cynthia raised her palm and two small bottles flew over. This is scraped from her mouth according to your method. What? Epithelial cells. This part belongs to Gould. Is it enough for you? Great, Gretel happily took it. I will produce the results as soon as possible. I will get the first wave of results, information as soon as possible. Nearly 4,000 votes. Still 60 votes left. Asking for a monthly ticket. Asking for a monthly ticket. In the last 4 hours, please be sure to get 4,000 votes. When it reaches 4,000 votes, there will be 6 additional monthly votes next month. By the way, you must also vote for me for next month's guaranteed monthly ticket. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1491. Greed returned to his brother-in-law's dragon lair with a pile of stones, monster skins, animal bones and horns, and other information recorded on strange carriers, carried by Vaska himself. Why is there no paper book? Gretel was on Vaska's back, flipping through the records impatiently, muttering softly. Every stone in the space storage equipment is called a stone wall to him, and it can be used to paste on the side of a dozen-story building to form a decorative wall directly from the bottom to the top. Even if the monster skins are cut into 7 or 8 pieces, each piece is enough for him to use as a quilt. If he wants to read the words on these monster skins, he has to step on them and walk from east to west, and then from west to east. The length of the horn is several times longer than the oldest unicorn in the rich forest. It is hard and sharp, and the end is crystal clear. This horn alone can be used as a lance. In short, every piece of information is rich, every piece of information is huge, every piece of information. They are all very unfriendly to him as a human being. That's for sure. Vaska turned around and cast a sidelong glance at Gretel on his back, and Cyrilla, who rested her chin on Gretel's shoulder and happily read the information with him. It's really an eyesore, but as an older brother, he can't just roll over in the air and throw that annoying young man away. That's paper. Paper. Things made of paper, whether it's a notebook or a scroll, will fall apart when touched and broken when scratched. Even if you keep it well, when you find it, it will be scattered all over the floor. What a waste. Wait a minute, what do you mean by leave it well? Of course, put it in the treasure pile. The corner of Gretel's mouth twitched. Imagine a paper book, even a paper book with a cowhide cover, a wooden cover, or a gold cover, thrown into the dragon's treasure pile. Then the dragon would lie down and sleep for dozens or even hundreds of years. During this period, it might have rolled countless times on the pile of treasures, and even gold coins were embedded in the gaps between its scales. No matter how sturdy the paper book is, it will be destroyed into a ball of crumbs as long as it is not powerfully enchanted. And powerful enchantment, paper is not made of special materials and has been specially treated during the production stage. It cannot withstand powerful enchantment. That's okay. When one goes to the countryside, he follows the Romans. The records left by the Dragon clan must be written in the way the Dragon clan is accustomed to, making it easier for the Dragon clan to read. As a human being, he is lucky to be able to see these things, so he should fight hard with these information. Anyway, whether it is flying to sea, standing at a high place and using the eagle eye technique, or spreading out his mental power to see, as a magician, he always has many ways. He drove Gretel and others back to his dragon's nest, then took a slight turn and dropped them off at the hospital. Vaska watched Greed rush into the warehouse and place information one by one. After placing them, he moved to another warehouse and took out the items one by one. He looked really envious and jealous. Magic crystal. Big chunks of magic crystal. A magic crystal with rich magic power that is bigger than his claws. Mithril mine. Fine gold mine. Jade steel mine. Various precious, high-energy ores. These are all thank you gifts from Gould and Kedikaruti. He has also fought on the battlefield for so long, and he has fought side by side with everyone. As a spellcaster, he has also treated many compatriots. Why does he have nothing? Gretel has only been here for a few days, but he has already taken so much. Hey, hurry up. It depends on you whether I can win this bet. It's okay, Gretel waved to him with a smile. Don't worry, I'll have a clearer idea after I go up there. Your project will start soon and it won't delay your work. While Greed was treating surrounding residents, he did not delay conducting experiments. Use various wild beasts and low-level monsters to conduct gene insertion and transformation experiments. Only 1 or 2 chromosome fragments are inserted at a time. The consumption is much smaller than before, and it can be done very quickly. And with this method of inserting only 1 or 2 clips, the success rate is much higher than before, and the mortality rate of beasts and monsters is greatly reduced. More importantly, through experiments with beasts and low-level monsters, Gretel roughly sorted out a range. Which chromosome fragments are suitable for wolf monsters, which fragments are suitable for bear monsters, which fragments are suitable for herbivorous monsters. Which fragment is suitable to be placed on which chromosome? When inserting which fragment, how much energy is required? Which level of Warcraft can withstand the insertion of many chromosome fragments? With a large amount of data piled up, Greet became more and more confident about the possibility of successful transformation. From experimenting with low-level World of Warcraft to mid-level Warcraft, from experimenting with low-level humanoid races, to when the earth rejuvenates and vegetation sprouts, Gretel has already carried out experiments on high-level Warcraft. It shouldn't be a big problem. We can start, he asked the cloud giant Lum to activate the communication device in the dragon's nest and solemnly informed Vaska. You can select 100 dependents in the territory and notify them to come for transformation. Well, to be on the safe side, find 150, or more. Can you start so early? Vaska was a little surprised. He originally thought that during the 3-year conversion period, Greet would have to spend at least 2 years doing research, leaving the last year for him. Turns out it only took him a year? Have you just started transforming into dependents? A golden head stretched out from the side. Vaska turned his head and became very alert. Saphira, what are you doing? How are the transformations of your own relatives going? Are you here to inquire about me? I have transformed 20 people. 20 people, the golden dragon Savory held his head high, walked half a circle to the left around Huasca, and then walked half a circle to the right. Newly transformed dependents need time to adapt to their own abilities. They need time to train, grow, and release the abilities given by dragon blood. Don't you know? They have just begun to transform now. How much time do you plan to give them? How many dependents do you plan to invest in transformation? The thorns on Vaska's back stood up and he stared at Savory coldly. 200? 300? Or more. The worse the strength of the dependents, the lower the success rate. If you transform 100, how many do you want to die? Really, a clear and crisp voice, like ice jade clashing, floated from a distance from a ball of colorful light. Vaska and the golden dragon Savory turned their heads at the same time. Flavia. They immediately stopped squinting at each other, raising thorns at each other, and showing signs of tension with each other. At the same time, he shook his scales to show himself in his most glorious state. The colored light spread out, and a crystal dragon with a slender body and crystal clear scales flew over lightly. Its deep purple vertical pupils looked from the silver dragon to the golden dragon, and from the golden dragon to the silver dragon. What are you doing? Why do you suddenly want to transform so many dependents? We are doing research, yes, doing research, Savory replied quickly. Try to see how to convert dependents with high efficiency and low consumption. With more dependents, we can better rule the territory. We don't have to worry about many things. But the success rate of transforming into a dependent is very low. Crystal Dragon frowned slightly. And it consumes a lot of us. So far, I have only transformed a dozen dependents, and I really can't afford to give so much blood. Let's forget about the magic energy. Drawing more blood is not good for myself. There's also damage. So we need to study it, Savory quickly added. I already have some clues here, and there happens to be a group of dependents who need to be transformed recently. Flavia, are you interested in taking a look together? Is that okay? Crystal Dragon tilted his head curiously. This is your own secret, how can you show it to me? No problem, I have no secrets from the beautiful lady. The golden dragon Saphira lowered his body diligently, making an inviting gesture. Then he raised his head again and glanced sideways at Vaska. Would you like to take a look? Just take a look. Anyway, I'm free. Recently invited by his love rival. Even if Vaska doesn't accept it, he must not appear timid in front of his opponent. The three dragons flew down from the Sky Dragon City and arrived at Savari's territory. After giving the order, 10 wild boar men, lizard men, and giants lined up, each holding a magical beast in their hands. Dear Master, thank you for giving us strength. We will repay your trust in us with the greatest loyalty. I have received your thoughts. The enamored girl was watching, and so was his love rival. Savari held his head high and waved his paw. Because of your loyalty and dedication, I will give you stronger power and a bloodline similar to mine. Now, enter the magic circle and accept the transformation. He cut his claws and dripped blood into a magic instrument like a white jade basin. On the surface of the magic instrument, overlapping magic lines were outlined, and they lit up one by one. Soon, only 1/10 of the blood began to tumble. On the edge of the jade basin, a large amount of monster blood was injected, gurgling upwards. The blood in the jade basin gradually became clearer, and then gradually thickened. Finally, the entire liquid in the jade basin was filled with a strong dragon aura. Flavia, look, this is my latest research result. It can increase the power of dragon blood tenfold. In this case, it only takes 1/10 of the consumption to transform enough dependence. With a wave of his paw, the blood in the jade basin flew up out of thin air and fell into 20 magic circles. Driven by the magic circle, it enveloped those humanoid creatures and warcraft. After a while, these transformed dependents screamed loudly one by one, their bodies expanded, contracted, expanded again, contracted again, beat their chests hard, and rolled all over the floor. The success rate is a bit low. Less than 1/3. Vaska was secretly frightened, but still complained. If you use it like this, how many strong men will be left in the territory? What about you? Savari asked without any sign of weakness. You just started transforming today, how many can you succeed in? How much will it cost? Do you dare to take a look at the beautiful lady? Just look. No matter what, the mortality rate here will never be as high as yours. Vaska fluttered her wings and flew into the sky. While flying, I prayed secretly. Future brother-in-law, you must hold on. It's the beginning of the month. It's the beginning of the month. Ask for a guaranteed monthly pass. Cats are so far away from the fantasy top 10. Everyone, give the cat a hand. The exposure at the beginning of the month is really crucial. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1492. Planet Watcher Leader adds 10 updates. How come 3 of them came at once? When Gretel was called out from the dragon's nest, he was completely confused. With the same hands and feet, eyes wide open, Cyrilla had to protect him carefully, and at the same time applied a feather falling technique on him to prevent him from falling. No way, those materials look too tiring. For example, the information he was reading just now was recorded in the horn. He needed to use his mental power to touch it. Then, the information in the horn was poured into his brain. The look of a giant dragon flying in the sky. A giant dragon is sleeping soundly in the dragon's nest. A giant dragon was coiled in the dragon's nest, tossing and turning, groaning in discomfort. A giant dragon turned into an elf form, holding out its belly and walking around slowly. It has pictures, texts, and sounds, and you can clearly see the changes in light and shadow when you move around. There is also a text description next to it, which details each stage of pregnancy, the type and amount of food the female dragon eats, and the energy supply in the dragon's nest. What I'm saying is, can the content be simplified a little bit? If you can use pictures, don't use videos. If you can use text, don't use pictures. Did you know that a 1 MB text document can contain 500,000 Chinese characters? Did you know that a slightly higher precision photo would be several megabytes in size? Video, I won't talk about it anymore, I just said it's sad. That is to say, the Dragon Clan family has a big business and a lot of money. They rely on their strong mental power and high enough level of recording materials to carve information into them like crazy. As for whether the recipients will be overwhelmed by this information? Heck, whatever. Those who will be overwhelmed by the information mean that they are not worthy of reading the information, and what is worse, it means that they did not obtain the information through legitimate channels. His mental strength was shattered and he became a madman and a fool. He deserved it. And now Gretel is straddling this line. The mental power is overwhelming, not to the point of being dizzy, a little bit. You need to drink a few more sips of glucose water and walk slowly for a while to recover. Hey, if conditions permit, it would be best to take oral oxygen. It was in this state that Gretel received the notice, "Brother is here, we'd better go out." But his eyes were straight, his feet were fluttering, and he walked out of the dragon's nest with 1 foot high and 1 foot low. When he saw 3 giant dragons flying from a distance, he couldn't react. That was natural. On the other hand, Sirara seemed quite excited. When she saw the 3 giant dragons flying in unison, she stood on tiptoes to take a look, and then grabbed Gretel. "Hey, look. Who is brother here with? How do I know this? How can I recognize who is who at a glance from a distance? Apart from you, your parents, and your brother, I don't even know your sister." Fortunately, Sirara didn't need him to answer. The silver dragon girl squinted her eyes and looked again and again, her eyes quickly turned into vertical pupils, and she murmured to herself. "The golden one on the left of my brother must be the golden dragon. Is it Yevajinki? Is it Sulik? Or..." She announced 5 or 6 names in a row, and Gretel was confused. He didn't know whether he was playing well with Vaska or if she was familiar with them. But Sarala's attention quickly shifted, her eyes widened, staring at the figure behind. What's behind this is a white dragon, not like a steel dragon, neither, the steel dragon is much darker, Mercury dragon. No, it's a crystal dragon. Crystal dragon. I know, it's the crystal dragon that my brother is pursuing recently, Flavia. The golden dragon next to him must be Savory. What are they doing here? Greet, are they coming to see you? Probably so. Greet stood on the platform at the entrance of the dragon's nest, breathing the cool mountain breeze for a while, and finally his mind came to his senses. Wei thought for a moment and answered affirmatively. Didn't your brother make a bet with Jinlong about transforming dependents to be used for fighting? The formal transformation work is about to begin today. They may come to take a look. Hey, here they come. While talking, the 3 dragons were flying closer and closer. There was a flash of silver light and a howling wind. Sirala transformed back into the silver dragon form, fluttered her wings and flew up. With his future brother-in-law in front of him, Gretel also wanted to save face for Sirara, and was about to activate the transformation technique, but the silver dragon girl turned her head and looked back, and said softly, "Just fly up, hurry up. You want to tire yourself out, and you won't be able to host the transformation when you turn around." Right. Gretel touched his nose and honestly performed the dragon flying technique. A pair of huge golden red dragon wings stretched out behind his back. He and Sirala flew side by side, facing the 3-headed dragon on the opposite side. Forget it about Vaska, the other 2, especially the golden dragon Saphira, were obviously not here to chat. Saying hello in the air, he looked at Vaska anxiously. "Where are your dependents? Are you ready? Let me see, how is your transformation success rate?" "Ready," Sirala, who calls herself Gretel's first assistant, immediately took over and answered crisply. Savory turned to look at her, a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes, and then turned to Vaska. Hey, brother, this is a violation of yours. We agreed before that we are not allowed to ask any of our own kind for help. What, you want to give up and quit? Who said that? I didn't find any of my own kind. Sirara just came here to have a look, not to help, right? Sirara. Of course, the silver dragon girl quickly glanced around and raised her head. This project is hosted by Gretel. Gretel is not a dragon. Brother, you didn't say before that you are not allowed to ask humans for help, right? This, Savory was stunned for a moment. There was no agreement in advance that we were not allowed to find humans, but the variables involved in finding humans were too big. From legends to ordinary people at the lowest level, all possibilities are possible. This Vaska is cunning and cunning. Is he taking advantage of this loophole? However, he glanced at Gretel quickly and put his heart back in his stomach. Greet's aura was somewhere between an adult dragon and a young dragon, a little weaker than Cirella's. Even if humans are naturally weaker than dragons, consider him an adult dragon, and he has just entered adulthood. How can a little guy who just came to Long Island help? Thinking of this, his face turned around and he even forced a smile. Flap your wings and nod slightly. Yes, of course. As long as you are not looking for someone of your own race, you can look for anyone, Flavia, right? Crystal Dragon responded softly. Her slender neck leaned forward slightly, she looked at Cirilla and Greet carefully, and nodded to them. Cirilla, you are back. This is, Greet. Hello, I am Flavia Padilla Cristila, nice to meet you. I am Greet Nordmark. Greet bowed slightly to her in the air and introduced himself. Then he turned to his future brother-in-law. Vaska, the transformation magic circle has been debugged, and the subject's condition has been adjusted to its best. Since you are here, will you start today? Indeed, as he said, everything was ready. The magic array flashed slightly, ready to go. A high-level black clouded leopard was licking its paws next to the magic array and taking care of itself seriously. However, Golden Dragon Savory looked at a magic circle that had nothing to do with the transformation circle, as well as the two trees next to the magic circle, and the moving tower spirit between the two trees, and his head was filled with questions. Is this how you transform your dependents? Don't you want to win? Convert one at a time. How much blood do you have to waste? How much time do you have to waste? Not to mention that we need to participate in battles above. Too little battles and too little training are not conducive to our advancement. If you run down every day, don't you want to accompany Flavia? Haha, my transformation method here is different from yours. Vaska had watched the transformation work several times, and she already had the confidence in her heart. She held her head high and smiled slightly. Savory's face darkened, and he turned his gaze to the ancient tree with bright red leaves standing next to the magic circle. His face became more cautious. Legend. Vaska, you asked Legend for help. Cheating. This is cheating. We are all adult dragons and have not crossed the boundary of Legend yet. Why can you invite Legends here? Sister Servilia is helping me host the magic circle. Greet interrupted in time. He stepped out from the crowd, stood in front of several dragons, nodded to them, and turned to the magic circle. Let's get started. Damon, you can go in. Damon, the black clouded leopard, let out a low roar, lowered his head to the dragons to show respect, and then entered the magic circle with light steps. Greet stretched out his hand and pressed it on the mobile tower spirit and began to give orders. Check the energy transmission device. The energy well is normal. Check the chromosome modification array. The modified magic circle circuit is running normally. Check Damon's earmuffs to make sure they're soundproof. The earmuffs fit normally and the sound isolation is perfect. Check the magnetic resonance device. The magnetic resonance device is operating normally. The energy transmission device is activated. Sister Servilia, please preside over it. Ashu, preside over the chromosome modification array and proceed according to plan No. 1. The magnetic field resonance device is activated, pay attention to changes at any time. Instructions came from his mouth one by one, and each magic circle and each device that the dragons did not recognize lit up. On the light screen projected by the oak tree, various images kept changing. Gretel stared at those images closely, constantly giving orders and casting various spells into the magic circle. Encouragement technique. Healing. Soothing technique. This is too cautious. Savory looked a little irritated and couldn't help pacing back and forth. There are many dangers in the process of transforming a dependent, shouldn't they have to bear it themselves? If they can bear it, they will live. If they can't bear it, it means they are not worthy of accepting our gift. What's the point of hanging them up with healing skills like this? At least they can survive. Gretel responded without looking back, and continued to focus on the transformation. Crystal Dragon Flavia's eyes lit up. That's right, at least you can survive. That's good if you can survive. Vaska, that's great. Yeah. Cyrilla quietly gestured behind her brother. Well done, great. Brother, go to Aten. Ask for a guaranteed monthly pass. Ask for a guaranteed monthly pass. Cat is still far away from the top 10 of the fantasy monthly vote list, so sad. Pia new book by the same author. Fairy, put down the knife first. In the 5367th year of Tianyuan, there was a demon who bullied men and women, used his power to bully others, and committed all kinds of evil. Both humans and gods were angry, and he wanted to turn the world into a purgatory. Good news, with the development of the plot, a few years later, the Son of Destiny will lead the Confidant to kill the devil. Bad news, now, I'm the devil. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geolan 2020. Chapter 1493. Vaska and Savory, two senior adult dragons, stood outside the conversion array, staring at the black clouded leopard in the magic array. Concentrate and hold your breath, even the perception of spiritual power needs to be careful. Mental power will also cause disturbance to the magic power, and their level is not yet high enough to be able to lift it with ease and clearly sense the situation of the black clouded leopard without affecting the magic circle. Vaska didn't want to lose, and Savory didn't want the other party to find an excuse because he interfered with the spell, causing the transformation to fail. Therefore, both parties were extremely careful, especially Savory, who had to observe and be careful not to touch any tiny magic node. Soon, a thin layer of thin film was covered on his forehead. Sweat. It was precisely because of this pressure that he took a while to realize. Where's your blood? Don't you even give blood to transform your dependents? You just discovered it? Vaska had been waiting for this question for a long time. At this time, he was finally satisfied and gave him a disdainful sideways glance. I've already given you what you should give. This is the new spell used by Gretel. It requires very little dragon blood. You only need to give it once and you can use it all the time. And he didn't even have to bleed. As long as he opens his mouth and lets the mage's hand go in and scratch it, he won't feel anything, so it will be fine over there. It's okay without bleeding. Is it okay without bleeding? Two voices asked at the same time. Savory was surprised with a little bit of jealousy. Although the amount of blood used to transform the dependents was small, it was still a big number when accumulated. Transforming 100 dependents requires him to release 200 to 300 parts of blood. Releasing so much blood will still hinder his progress in strength. This Vaska, what kind of bad luck did he have? If he can really successfully transform his dependents using this new method, then his strength will grow much faster than his own. Compared with savory, crystal dragon Flavia is just curious. The young female dragon, who was still whispering to Cyrilla just now, took a step forward, looked up and down, and carefully looked at the entire magic circle. There's really no blood. There's no smell of blood either. Is this really possible? It can be done, Cyrilla followed happily and gave her guidance. I have used this magic circle many times. It has transformed many people. Some are stronger, some are weaker, some are more, some are less, but they can all be transformed. If there is no dragon blood, how can it be transformed? Just have a template. Cyrilla held her hand and walked around. Hey, the palms of the crystal dragon are ice cold and the nails are crystal clear. They are really as beautiful as gems. I like them so much. Here, look, she pointed to Flavia, a very small box on the side of the magic circle. These are my brothers' cells. The chromosomes in the cells have been tested. All we need to do is copy certain chromosome segments. You see, copying is happening here. Where? The two girls came together, their faces as delicate as flowers and as bright as moonlight, as close as each other, whispering. Savory only glanced at it, and he was so excited that he had to look away quickly. The visual effect of two girls next to each other is so beautiful. If you are not careful, your eyes may slip from the girl you like to Cyrilla. I like Flavia. Cyrilla has a man she likes. Her brother is still there. No distractions. Forget it, let's not watch it. On the other hand, Vasca smiled happily. Well done, sister. Keep Flavia, talk to her more, and get closer to her. It's best to let her stay in my territory for 1 day, 2 days, 1 year, or 2, always. Let that savory dance. Several giant dragons have their own thoughts, but Gretel is the only one who is unaware of it, or in other words, even if he knows, he doesn't care. As the leader of the Dragonborn transformation plan, the only thing he cares about now is whether the transformation work can be successful and how effective it will be. Well, according to previous research results, different races can withstand different types of dragon chromosomes. Different levels of Warcraft can also withstand different numbers of dragon chromosome insertions. For example, humanoid creatures have a relatively strong ability to withstand dragon scales, but a weaker ability to withstand dragon teeth. This may lead to skull deformation, various sequelae, or death directly during the transformation process. For example, four-legged creatures will be more tolerant of certain breath genes of dragons and can easily transform their breath organs, especially ruminant creatures. Another example is genes such as strong and toughness, as well as genes that greed suspects are used to break through the upper limit. Those with a level lower than level 5 can only accept 1 point, and those with a level lower than 10 can only accept 2 points. After studying all the dragon-blooded creatures in Andre and Vasca's territory, and conducting hundreds of transformation experiments, Gretel has initially summarized the rules. Now, he was modifying the clouded leopard and carefully selected 10 points to insert into the clouded leopard's chromosome sequence. 1 is strong, 1 is tough, and 1 increases the upper limit. 1 dragon scale, 1 dragon claw, 1 lightness, 2 points used to control the wind breath, and 2 points related to the essence of the dragon clan. In other words, with these 2 points, the transformed object can become a dragon-blooded monster, with the characteristics of being recognized by the dragon clan, and being sensitive to the pressure of the dragon clan. It must be said that it is still useful to call all the dragon-blooded creatures in the territory to take samples, measure chromosomes, and cross-reference them one by one. If there is a set of chromosomes that every creature with dragon blood has, then those who will be transformed in the future must also have it. As for whether the set of chromosomes is the legendary Shit Mountain code, who cares besides, even if it is the Shit Mountain code. An important feature of Shit Mountain is that you can leave it alone and try not to touch it. The insertion of point number 1 is completed. The insertion of point 2 is completed. Insertion of number 3 completed. The energy in the dragon's nest surged and circulated. Under Servilia's combing and guidance, it gathered in the magic array and was injected into the black clouded leopard's body through the magic array. With the injection of energy, the black clouded leopard stood up and lay down a little irritably, lay down and stood up again, the tips of its claws popped out, and scratched the ground with all its strength. The hard and smooth blue-gray stone ground, with a few scratches by him, created a crisscross grid. It's a pity that the horizontal and slanting are dense and not very regular. Otherwise, it would be a good chessboard. Yeah, it's starting to grow scales. Flavia let out a soft cry. The black clouded leopard scratched the ground a few times, then began to roll all over the ground. After rolling a few times, it got into the iron cage preset next to it. He arched his back and rubbed himself against the iron cage repeatedly. The pure black hair fell down, and underneath the hair, the faint luster of scales quietly emerged. Well, the leopard's defense has always been relatively low. It is protected by a layer of dragon scales, which is a good thing for it. Cyrilla nodded without surprise. I have discussed it with it before, and it is also willing to have this ability. It's just that, when it grows out, it looks more itchy. Is this still negotiable? What other abilities can I specify? Flavia exclaimed softly, covering her lips with her slender palms. Her eyes were smart and more delicate. Savory was no longer in the mood to look at her. His heart skipped a beat and he couldn't help but take a step forward. Can this be specified? In all transformation processes, isn't it the dragon clan giving blood, and then the transformed dependents taking the dragon blood / soaking in the dragon blood / standing in the magic circle to accept the influence of the dragon blood, struggling hard, and trying to survive? If you can survive it, you will live. If you cannot survive it, you will die. As for what kind of abilities you will get after surviving this, apart from the fact that the advancement is certain, the rest is left to fate. If the transformation is done well, the abilities obtained will be consistent with one's own. For example, the ice tiger will get a pair of dragon wings, or the giant will grow an extra head and gain the ability to cast spells. If the transformation is not done well, the abilities obtained have nothing to do with oneself, or even conflict with them. For example, a quillboar who is good at throwing grows a pair of dragon claws. What does he need the dragon claws for? You are stronger, and with a pair of keen eyes, your strength can be improved. Of course it can be specified. Cyrilla smiled and took Flavia's hand, taking her 2 more steps to the side. Between her and the golden dragon Sapphira, she was covered by the moving tower spirit. Greed has been doing this for such a long time. He said that the chromosome points of the dragon clan are very numerous and very complex, and cannot be analyzed directly. But there are so many half-dragons and dragon-blooded monsters, and you can compare them one by one, and you can compare them in any way. As long as you compare them, you can insert them in a targeted manner. Well done, girl. Use all kinds of fresh knowledge to keep Flavia. As for the value of this knowledge, I believe that I will definitely compensate Greed. The black clouded leopard rubbed, bit, and rolled, and a small part of its pure black long hair was rubbed off. It looked like a mangy dog or a big cat with cat moss that had been shaved completely by its owner. Cyrilla shook her head repeatedly and sighed several times. Gretel walked from one light screen to the other, constantly making adjustments, giving orders, and occasionally writing a few sentences in his notebook. Chromosomes and their expression are 2 different things. If the inserted chromosome can be temporarily suppressed, it can greatly reduce the pressure on the person being transformed. For example, reduce the energy supply so that the inserted chromosomal site does not exhibit superpower reactions for the time being. Just like this black clouded leopard, if it grows dragon scales through long-term training after undergoing transformation, wouldn't it be easier than growing it now? Well, in the past, This problem was not easy to show up on ordinary beasts and low-level monsters. As for high-level monsters, you need to pay attention in the future. Savory's expression had changed. Targeted transformation means that Vasker's half-dragons and dragon-blooded monsters can be paired together to form a team with complementary abilities. This is much stronger than the randomly modified team on his side. Please give me a guaranteed monthly ticket. This month's monthly ticket harvest is so bad, the cat is rolling and crying. If you don't give the cat a ticket, the cat will transform himself and grow dragon scales. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1494. Scarlacy 10,000 rewards plus 1 update. Golden Dragon Savory's heart gradually sank. Let's assume that both teams have 50 half-dragons and 50 monsters. The levels are similar and the initial combat power is similar. However, a team is the dependence of the entire territory. From strong to weak, they are transformed one by one, and the first 100 successful ones are selected. The type is random, the abilities obtained are random, and after undergoing transformation, the rate of increase in abilities is random. The other team is a carefully matched race. Land, air, frontal attack, side harassment, long-range attack, various spells, treatment, everything is available. The abilities obtained from the Dragon Clan are also strengthened in a targeted manner and will never conflict with each other or be weakened on the contrary. So, which team is strong and which team is weak, you can tell without asking. Before the official competition, just looking at the selection methods of the two teams, he lost 50% first. The reason why it's not 100%. Savory frowned and stared inside the magic circle. It has been a day, a whole day. If it is his dependent, the transformation process is almost over, and it is time to see the results and decide between life and death. At this moment, if you can rush over, you will be alive, and you will be a subordinate that the Dragon Clan relies on. If you can't rush through, you will die. Everything in the past will disappear, leaving only a corpse, maybe even the whole corpse will not be left behind. It will explode with a bang and explode into pieces of rotten flesh. It is not something that has never happened before. At this time, the energy in the body of the person being transformed is usually boiling to the most violent level, and you can often see the person being transformed vomiting blood, rolling around on the ground, or making the sound of bones breaking. As for the black clouded leopard in front of me, although it was quite painful to look at, the movement was much smaller. With such a little movement, can it be successfully transformed? Savory took a step forward, stepped back slightly, and then moved forward again. It feels like it hasn't advanced. Vaska couldn't answer this question, or he didn't care at all. He turned his questioning eyes to Greet. Hey, can you give me an explanation? Greet's back was turned to him, busy between the light screens, throwing a healing spell at the black clouded leopard from time to time, and had no time to answer him. He was mumbling to himself, but he was talking to the oak staff. Ashu, you need to learn to read magnetic resonance images. Look here, there is a slight break in the muscle. You have to throw a healing spell over there in time. Don't always count on me. It's very tiring for me to hold on for several days in a row. It's also harmful to my mental strength. Unlike you, you don't have to sleep. If you bear one more fruit, you can free up your hands. Rustle, 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 the dense leaves on the top of the oak tree are shaking constantly. In the world of meditation, the oak rod is making a big noise. I've got my hands full. I want to help you control the magic circle. Help you calculate that guy's chromosomes. Select the insertion point. Control the accurate insertion. We also need to control the energy input. The flow rate cannot be too high or too low. If it is too high, it will explode. If it is too low, it will not work. So many things have been entrusted to me, and you still want to be lazy. You also want to leave the treatment work to me. You are going too far. Bad master. Gretel shook his head and smiled bitterly. This oak staff helped him do a lot of work, but every time he had to do more work, he had to make a fuss. I had no choice but to gather a ray of life force and give him a bribe. Okay, thank you for your hard work. Transforming the dragon beast is so rich in energy. I haven't treated you badly, right? You help me properly and absorb a little energy during the transformation process. Vaska won't say anything, right? The rustling sound gradually stopped. Greed walked around the light screens again, looked at the progress of the transformation, and yawned greatly. Okay, the chromosome insertion has been completed. Next is the advanced work. Ashu, please take charge of it. I'm going to take a nap. He turned around and said hello to Vaska, summoned the mage's hut, got in without saying a word, and fell asleep. In the magic circle, energy is still flowing turbulently. The black clouded leopard roared low in its chest, standing up and lying down, and standing up again. Beside the magic circle, Cyrilla smiled softly and explained to Flavia. We have done many experiments before, separating the chromosome modification process and the advancement process, and making the advancement process as long as possible will help increase the success rate. You think, doing two things at the same time is better than doing one thing, isn't it possible? But separating the two things will lengthen the transformation time. Using the traditional method, 40 dependents can be transformed in 3 days, using this new method, only one can be transformed in 3 days. For a moment, Golden Dragon Samurai regretted, he shouldn't have set the number of dependents at 100. It should have been 1000, or 500 before. If he had to wait and see, if he couldn't get enough, how could he compare with himself? No, for 500 dependents, the dragon blood given to me by myself is too much, which will seriously affect my advancement. If we had known earlier, we should have agreed to compete 1 year later, or 6 months later. By then, all his dependents have been transformed, and he has just started. Isn't he sure of winning but not losing? On his side, he was annoyed and regretful. Beside the magic circle, Crystal Dragon Flavia opened her eyes wide in surprise and asked Cyrilla. Hey, is he going to bed? Don't you care? Don't worry about it. It will be very simple later, Cyrilla nodded vigorously. When I was on Elf Island, I did many experiments with him, and he was watched by others for the second half of the process. He kept enduring it, day and night. How could he endure it? I used to keep an eye on him. She raised her face proudly. He watched the first half, and I watched the second half. The whole experiment was done by the two of us, and no one can be missing the other. As he spoke, there was a smile on his lips and his eyes were filled with pride and sweetness. Flavia held her hand enviously. No wonder you advanced so quickly. You are dozens of years younger than me, and you have already advanced to adulthood. Hey, speaking of it, is it okay for you to watch this alone? Can you handle it? No problem. When I was on Elf Island, there were several legendary masters who took turns watching me. If I was unsure or couldn't do it, they would deal with it immediately and tell me later. I listen. Cyrilla answered without thinking. The matter-of-factness in his tone made Flavia feel envious. Even if they want to get the guidance of the legendary dragon, they have to try their luck and chance. Besides your parents and close relatives, who should guide you? And what about Cyrilla? This is not even my own legend, this is an elf legend, several of them, teach her in turn. And the silver dragon girl was still talking happily. Those chromosomes are a bit difficult. Well, even if Greet does the math by himself, he can't figure it out very well, so he has to ask Mobile Tailing and Ashu to help him figure it out. But after calculating the results, he taught me everything about how to analyze and process them, as well as related treatment techniques. I helped him write many of his papers. Wow! Flavia's eyes were shining. The crystal dragon's delicate jade-like face, together with its white hair, shone with crystal luster, like a bright moon in the dragon's nest. She looked at Cyrilla with envy, and then at the magic circle that was flowing with light behind her. Each piece of magic rune was full of mystery, and they were all magical contents that she didn't understand at all. Seeing Cyrilla staring at the light screen, the oak leaves swaying gently, sprinkling a little healing magic on the black clouded leopard, and then a little more healing magic, she couldn't help but ask again. Why is the healing spell he used so small? Just a little bit, can't you just throw a big one at it and let it sit there? When I transformed my dependents, I didn't even give him a healing spell. That's because the crystal dragon is not good at healing. Cyrilla swallowed these words back and said with a smile. You can't use the healing technique too much. If you use it too much, it will cause too much damage to the person being treated. Only by guiding it step by step can you maximize the possibility of its advancement. Gretel said that if you have to use a major healing spell to heal minor injuries, that's called laziness. Only idiots do this. If it hadn't been agreed before that no other members of the same race could be allowed to help, I should have been the one to do these treatments. Gretel said, practice more and use the smallest treatment to achieve the maximum effect, which will help improve your control. Gretel, Gretel, Gretel. Flavia had only been here for a day, and her ears were filled with the name of this human magician. Seeing Cyrilla's lips keep curling up when talking about him, and the joy in her eyes flashing, she couldn't help but feel a little envious. It's great to be able to like a dragon or a person from the bottom of my heart. It's great to be able to do research with people you like and work towards the same direction. Can I stay here for a few more days? It's still half a month until it's my turn to go up to garrison. I have at least 10 days to spare. Can I take a closer look at your renovation work? If possible, can I help you a little bit? Yes, yes. Of course, Vaska couldn't wait to agree. Emma, I didn't expect that this bet would lead to such a divine development. Sure enough, it was right to leave this project to my brother-in-law. Sure enough, it was right to give control of the dragon's nest and the entire energy supply system to my brother-in-law. Sure enough, I convinced my dad that it was right to bring all the dragon-blooded creatures in my own territory and all the dragon-blooded creatures in my dad's territory. The only problem is... He looked at the golden dragon Samurai with evil intentions. Flavia is here to help. Does it count as a member of the same race helping me? Will it count me as a loser? Savory. This is so cunning. It's so cunning. I don't think you lose. Obviously, you have one more person, maybe 2 members of the same race to help, and you have Flavia tied to your territory. It comes once, and it may come several times in the future. If I said you lose, wouldn't I immediately offend Flavia? Sure enough, silver dragons are cunning. And humans are even more cunning. Cunning and cunning. Please give me a monthly ticket. Ask for a guaranteed monthly pass. Why is the monthly ticket collection so poor this month? There are only 13 people so far. Cry. Thanks to @Shadow Phantom Grudge for the reward of 106 starting coins. Thanks @Meow King for the 100 starting coins reward. It's not that difficult to open a hospital in another world, right? Author, Geoland 2020. Chapter 1495. The golden dragon Samurai was torn for 3 seconds between letting Flavia stay in the silver dragon's territory and immediately offending Flavia. 1, 2, 3, just 3 seconds, he immediately made a decision. It's not a foul. It's definitely not a foul. Flavia, if you want to see it, just look at it more. Of course. He turned to stare at Vaska. I'm free recently. Can we watch it together for a few days? If the effect is particularly good, maybe we can report it to the superiors. The eyes of the golden dragon and the silver dragon collided. Provocation, counterattack, tit for tat. Do you want to stay here? Yes, are you going to drive me away? Why is this guy so shameless? I didn't invite you to stay. Are you embarrassed to drive me away in front of Flavia? Crackling, crackling. Elder brother. Ah, it's okay. Cyrilla, come and take a good look with Flavia. Watch whatever you like. Flavia, do you want to eat or drink something? Are you interested in the ice spring hagfish? Or golden dock? Queen clam is also good. Cyrilla coughed loudly on the side. Brother, I usually eat these things once in a while, but you still feel distressed when I see the girl I like. Sure enough, when you meet the girl you like, you don't want a sister? But brother, don't forget, Flavia is a crystal dragon, a crystal dragon. She is not like us, we also like to eat human food, crystal dragon, which prefers to eat gems and metal ores for food. By the way, brother, can you afford her? Anyway, I can't afford it. The few gems, gold, and silver coins I have in stock are probably enough for her to eat 1 or 2 meals. I can't even use them to make my own bed, and I can't even use gems as pillows. Don't even think about me supporting her. You. Whether Vaska can afford to raise the crystal dragon Flavia, or in other words, whether she can afford the crystal dragon to eat gold, silver, and jewelry, is a question that will be considered later. After all, it is still the stage of mutual contact and expression of affection. At this stage, the male dragon family can at most send some small gifts to the female dragon family. To show that I can support you, I can provide you with the needs for advancement, and I can provide you with the needs of raising offspring with me. The goodwill between both parties will be further deepened, and the female dragon will begin to evaluate the strength of the male dragon. Let's talk about it later. After all, the crystal dragon's food is closely related to their strength growth, not to mention directly proportional to it. A crystal dragon that feeds on iron ore, copper ore, tin ore, mica, and crystal, and a crystal dragon that feeds on gold ore, silver ore, mithril ore, ruby, sapphire, diamond, and emerald. Whew! Powerful. If other conditions are the same and the amount of ore eaten is the same, then there is no doubt that the latter is stronger. In addition, in the process of gestating and hatching dragon eggs, it is obvious that female dragons exert more effort and lose more power than male dragons. Without enough financial resources and strength, who will be with you? But now, what Vaska wants to do is to try his best to keep the crystal dragon he loves. In this regard, he is doing well so far, or Gretel is doing well. When Gretel woke up and crawled out of the mage's hut, he saw Cyrilla and Flavia next to each other, pointing and circling around the magic circle. The two girls gathered together and kept whispering. You see, this black clouded leopard is quite smart. The location of the dragon scales is mainly on the neck and back. These are its weak spots and places where it can be easily injured. The claws have also become much harder and sharper. Look at the layers of silver patterns on them, do they look a bit like dragon claws? Saying this, Cyrilla raised her right hand and curled her 5 fingers into claws. Greed saw that the soft and delicate hand began to get thicker, and harder, and 5 nails popped out from the fingertips, which were extremely sharp and cold. Starting from the back of the hand, it suddenly turned into the shape of a dragon's claw. It's attached to a human's arm, especially when it's shaking around the cheek. The visual effect is extremely horrifying. There is talk about the so-called dragon claw hand, eagle claw skill and so on. Fortunately, they are just simulations, and the hands are still human hands. Gretel imagined that when Cyrilla was joking with him, her hands, or the hand holding his, suddenly turned into dragon claws. Everyone is feeling bad. Girl, you don't want it? Let's not act so scary. Flavia is also a dragon, so you don't need to show her what a dragon's claws look like. Flavia looked very interested. He took Sarah's palm and looked at it, then he stretched out his palm and took on the form of a dragon's claw. Next to each other, they competed again and again. Well, as expected, this claw is in the form of a silver dragon. If it is a dependent transformed with my blood, the claws should look brighter and more transparent. The black clouded leopard is a killer in the dark, and having its claws too bright is not good for it. Look, it is experimenting with its breath. The chest rises, inhale, inhale, spray. Great. It's paralyzing breath. This one is much less powerful than ice breath, but it's just right for it. Let me tell you, the vast majority of spellcasters inherit ice breath. Greet and I did many experiments before we locked on this point. Ah, can I still choose this one? Of course you can choose. It's just that the calculation is very difficult. Look at the tree, how many fruits it bears. When we first arrived at Long Island, it only bore more than 50 fruits. What about now? Just count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Flavia really raised her head and counted one by one. If it were an ordinary fruit, she would be able to count it clearly immediately with a sweep of her mental power. However, each of the fruits on the oak branches is shrouded in rich magical power. If you look carefully, you can see that there are layers of runes flowing inside, and you can't see the bottom at a glance. Take advantage of the counting time to look at these runes and the way the runes are connected. It will always be helpful to your own magic level. After all, Cyrilla pulled her and pointed at the fruits on the tree to show her, right? It's already more than 70, almost half the number. After counting, Flavia stuck out her tongue in surprise. Do you have to calculate so many things? In order to transform these dependents, does your brother have to spend so much energy? Well, it's nothing to give a little energy. Vasca finally found the opportunity and interjected. No matter what, they are my dependents. I can't bear to let them die 1 out of 2 or 1 out of 3 in order to transform into dragon-blooded creatures. With a little energy, they can be transformed safely. This is good. Flavia looked at Vasca with bright eyes, and a strange color appeared in her eyes. After staring for a while, he turned to look at the magic circle, then looked at the black clouded leopard roaring in the magic circle, and murmured. No wonder everyone says that the silver dragon is a kind dragon. All this energy that you could have used to strengthen the dragon's nest was used on your dependents. He doesn't have to do it even if he doesn't want to. The golden dragon Sapphire saw that it was not good and quickly interjected. Ask him, without this energy, who would help him calculate the data? Who would help him host the magic circle? This transformation method is not his own decision, right? Isn't it Master Nordmark's decision? Gretel? If you two are jealous, don't take me with you. I am a ruthless researcher. I took this opportunity to do some projects, analyze a few chromosomes, and study some ways of chromosome insertion and modification. Kindness, compassion, and compassion have nothing to do with me. I am only responsible for providing solutions and providing a rough budget. Whether it is used or not is up to Huasca. He calmly threw the pot back. If he lets me use it, then he must be willing to pay for the energy. Otherwise, how can I get the ability to connect the magic circle to his dragon's nest? Well done, brother-in-law. Thank you for speaking up for me. Thank you for flattering me in front of girls. Thank you so much. Although you said that there is no need for any other payment, the energy absorbed by the 2 trees will be used as payment, but for these few words I said to you, I must thank you very much. Wait. After they leave, I will look through my collection when I get back, the trophies in Sky Dragon City, and pick the best ones for you. Vasca's eyebrows were filled with excitement, his left hand was hidden on the side of the waist where Flavia couldn't see, and he quickly gave Greet a thumbs up. On the contrary, Golden Dragon Savory's face darkened. Hey hey hey, are you just talking to him like this? I don't speak for him, how can I help you? Gretel raised his eyebrows at him and turned directly to the core of the magic circle. He carefully looked at the operation records during his sleep for a while, then adjusted the magic array, detected the situation of the black clouded leopard, and breathed a sigh of relief. It should be almost completed. According to the current progress, the transformation should be successful by this time tomorrow. The dragon's breath, dragon scales, dragon claws, and breath can all be reflected, and the upper limit of advancement can also be opened. Then can it be advanced? Flavia asked with concern. Previously at Savory's place, the auras of the dependents who had been successfully transformed had a significant increase. It was obvious that they had successfully advanced. But the human magician didn't mention this. Not for the time being, Gretel smiled. If you want to advance, you need to train hard afterwards. But the upper limit has been opened. It should not be difficult to advance to level 1 or level 2 within a year or two. That won't improve your combat effectiveness. Savory complained a bit sarcastically. Gretel turned to look at him and raised his eyebrows slightly. For the sake of safety, it will be good if the first transformation can be completed safely. As for further advancements, as long as it performs well, who says it can't be transformed again? What? How many more times do you want to transform? As long as time allows and energy allows, there is basically no upper limit. Gretel stretched out an arm, and the Turnbaka flapped its wings and landed on his arm. Look, Baka was also transformed by me, and now he's almost half a legend. Thanks to at Platinum Tower for the 100,000 starting coins reward.